Imagine you haven't eaten a single bite in 2 full days. You know exactly where the herd is. Yesterday, you tracked their trail and memorized every turn. All that's left is to reach them and hunt. Then suddenly, it starts raining. Not a light drizzle, an endless, violent downpour with freezing winds. It doesn't stop. It rains all day, all night. You wake up the next morning, and it's still raining. Now you can't hunt. Visibility is almost zero. Every trail has turned to mud, wiping away every footprint you followed. Walking barefoot across wet rocks in the open means one wrong step could twist your ankle. And if that happened in those times, a single injured leg could mean certain death. The river beside your camp keeps rising. The fire, the only thing keeping you warm and driving predators away, is struggling to stay alive. You're not bored, you're trapped. For most of human history, rain wasn't a pleasant change of weather or an excuse to stay indoors. It was a catastrophe, and what our ancestors did during those storms may have been more important than anything they accomplished on a clear, sunny day. Today, when it rains, you close the window, make yourself a hot cup of coffee, wrap yourself in a blanket, turn on Netflix, sink into the couch, and relax. To you, the sound of rain is soothing, something that helps you sleep. But to a human living 55,000 years ago, that exact same sound could kill them in 3 different ways before the storm even ended. The first danger was deadly cold. A wet human body loses heat up to 25 times faster than a dry one. Without waterproof clothing or insulated shelter, a cold rainstorm could lower your body temperature to dangerous levels within hours. The second danger was flash floods. Many of our ancestors lived in rock shelters and caves near the bottoms of hills or beside rivers. Heavy rain meant water pouring directly into those caves. Archaeologists have discovered layers of flood sediment inside caves, once inhabited by humans, proving that storms flooded their homes while they were living there. Some of those caves were abandoned forever afterward. The third, and perhaps the worst, danger was predators. Rain forced every animal to seek shelter. Sometimes the only dry shelter available was the very cave you were hiding in. In caves across South Africa, archaeologists have found the remains of humans alongside the remains of large predatory cats in the same layers. Some human skulls even bear leopard bite marks that perfectly match their teeth. Rain didn't simply make life uncomfortable, it compressed the entire world. Humans, predators, and prey were all squeezed into the same tiny patches of dry ground. And in the middle of all this, one task mattered more than anything else: keeping the fire alive. Why was this so terrifying? Around 40,000 years ago, scientists aren't entirely sure how easily humans could create fire from scratch. There is evidence of controlled fire dating back over 400,000 years, but there's a huge difference between maintaining a flame and creating one from nothing. If your fire went out during a storm, there was a good chance you wouldn't be able to relight it. That's why some groups carried glowing embers from place to place, wrapped in fresh green leaves or stored inside a type of tinder fungus. It functioned like a biological lighter, capable of preserving a live ember for hours. When archaeologists discovered the famous Iceman, who lived more than 5,000 years ago in the Alps, they found a complete fire-starting kit attached to his belt, including tinder fungus and flint. So when the rain came, protecting the fire became everyone's highest priority. They moved it deeper into the cave, shielded it with animal hides, and fed it with dry wood gathered from beneath pine trees, or by splitting soaked logs to reach the dry heartwood inside. Sometimes one person's entire job during the storm was simply sitting beside the fire, feeding and protecting it, because that fire meant everything: warmth, safety, cooked food, and the center of social life. But suppose the fire was burning, you were dry inside the cave, and you still couldn't go outside. What would you do? You would start making things. The archaeological record is remarkably clear on this. Caves are filled with evidence of stone tool production. Thousands upon thousands of tiny stone flakes have been found concentrated around ancient fireplaces, the exact places where people sat for hours shaping tools. But they weren't only making stone tools. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists discovered a 100,000-year-old workshop for producing pigments. Seashells were used as mixing bowls, while bone tools stirred the mixtures. This wasn't merely survival, it was sophisticated production. Bone needles first appeared around 61,000 years ago. A delicate needle with a tiny eye isn't something you make while running from a leopard. It's something you make while sitting quietly beside a fire with long hours to spare. Rain gave them those hours. Even rope may have been born from moments like these. In France, archaeologists discovered a piece of twisted rope roughly 52,000 years old. In Germany, they found a mammoth ivory tool specifically designed to twist plant fibers into rope. Rope changed human history. It allowed people to tie objects together, build stronger shelters, create traps and nets, and fasten stone points securely onto wooden shafts. One of humanity's greatest technological breakthroughs may have been invented by someone trapped inside a cave, simply waiting for the rain to stop. They even made their shelters more comfortable. Archaeologists have found carefully layered grass bedding dating back 77,000 years, with the upper layers containing aromatic leaves that naturally repelled insects. People were practicing pest control 77,000 years ago while sitting through rainstorms. Everything so far has been practical, but what came next was something entirely different: art. Inside Chauvet Cave in southern France are paintings created around 36,000 years ago. Lions, horses, and rhinoceroses rendered with astonishing skill. Their muscles are tense, their heads turn naturally, and their movements are captured with remarkable realism. These aren't random sketches. They are the work of people who spent countless hours observing animals and later recreated them from memory deep inside dark caves by firelight. What's even more extraordinary is where these paintings are located. Not near the cave entrance. Many lie hundreds of meters inside, in cramped chambers that require crawling to reach. No one crawls that deep carrying a torch to paint when hunting is going well outside. You do that when the rain has lasted for days, you've already finished repairing your tools, and there's nothing left to do except disappear into the darkness and create. And from art came culture. Then came stories. Imagine being trapped with 15 to 30 people inside a cave for days. What would you talk about? One study comparing conversations among traditional hunter-gatherer societies found that daytime discussions focused almost entirely on practical matters: food, hunting, and the land. But at night, around the fire, more than 80% of conversations became stories, songs, and myths. Firelight changed the way people spoke. It created calm. It brought people together, and those stories weren't just entertainment. They were slow-moving information. Where can you find water during the dry season? Which plants are safe to eat? How do you track a particular animal? Oral tradition passed this knowledge from one generation to the next. Some of the oldest surviving oral traditions even describe sea level changes that occurred around 7,000 years ago. Those stories survived for thousands of years because people sat together during long rainy days, telling them over and over again. Rain wasn't wasted time. It was the time when knowledge and collective memory were preserved. And rain wasn't always bad. Sometimes it was the greatest opportunity of all. After a heavy storm, the ground became soft. Soft ground preserved perfect footprints. Hunters could see exactly which animals had passed, how long ago, how fast they were moving, and where they were headed. Rain also filled natural rock pools with precious drinking water. It caused mushrooms and edible plants to burst from the earth. Roots and tubers became easier to dig from the softened soil. Even termites emerged in huge swarms after rain, providing a rich source of protein that required no weapons and very little effort to collect. So what did ancient humans do when it rained all day? They did everything that mattered. They kept the fire alive. They crafted the tools they would use on their next hunt. They sewed the clothes that would keep them warm through winter. They twisted rope that strengthened their shelters. They mixed pigments and painted animals onto cave walls. They told stories that carried survival knowledge across generations. And when the rain finally stopped, they stepped onto soft earth covered with fresh animal tracks and returned to hunting. Rain wasn't the enemy. Rain gave them time to prepare for what came next. Boredom, as we understand it today, barely existed for them. Because when you're sitting inside a cave while rain pounds outside, and your survival depends on what you can create with your own hands over the next few hours, you're not bored. You become creative. And that may be one of the biggest reasons humanity is still here today.